How's it going, guys? I'm that socially awkward gamer you probably forgot existed, otherwise known as IAmPattyJack. Welcome to Hope or No, but this is the show where we talk about upcoming games and whether or not we think they're going to be successful based on how they've been advertised and marketed by the developer, by the media, and by consumers themselves. In today's episode, we'll be talking about Far Cry 4, but before we do that, I want to go through some comments from the last video on No Man's Sky. That was a pretty controversial video. It's sitting at, I think it has more dislikes than likes, which I actually kind of expected because I actually gave that game a nope. I didn't think it was going to succeed. And some people didn't like it. There were some very good arguments for the game, and I'm going to showcase some of those. I'm going to showcase some that agreed with me. I'm going to showcase some that just gave other opinions. Then there are some people who, insulted me and all that stuff, blah, 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 blah. The way I see it, if you have to insult the person who's making the video without actually offering any points, then you don't have any points and your argument is completely invalid, so whatever. Let's get into the comments. We're going to start off with Singularity Bond, who says, I can't agree in regards to my giving the nope in that video. He says, if you got a good handle on the ideas they have used to create the system does most of the work for them. That includes things like AI-based drones that do the work for them in the universe for quality checks, etc. By the way, that in itself is another genius tool they put to use. I think they've created one of the next big things as far as generation for any kind of landscape or world. Think of the next RPG using this kind of thing. It's literally Minecraft on a universal scale. I am very intrigued by the generation tool that they've created for this game. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how it really makes all the worlds surrounding you. My skepticism for that comes in the idea that every time there's a new mechanic or a new tool that's supposedly groundbreaking, it never lives up to it in the first release when it's actually used. So when this tool comes out, I don't think it's going to be refined enough to give you a very immersive experience in the game. And I think it'll take a couple years before another game does something similar but really refines how it works. So that's where my big skepticism for that comes along, but I do hope that you're right. I hope that the tool does work really well, and I'm really interested to know exactly how those AI drones that go around in the game world and quality check everything actually work. So it has a lot of potential, but I'm still not convinced about it. The next comment comes from Joe Blow, who says, I really want this game to deliver. As for a hype train thing, that's purely the media and YouTube bloggers. The devs are barely saying a thing. When they do, they are pretty grounded about it. I think GameSpot has a video on this game after E3, and its title was The Next Big Thing, when they know very little about the game. That's where the hype is coming from. And yeah, I pretty much completely agree. Developers, even when they don't go out of their way to promote the game, the media will. And that's an unfortunate thing that happens. That's a big part of this series, though. We want to talk about whether a game is a success or failure, and whether the media kind of dictates that. Because when you look at a game like Shadow of Mordor, yeah, there was a lot of hype for the game, but a lot of people weren't very convinced by it when it came out, and that's kind of blown everyone out of the water. Everyone has been very turned around by that game. So my concern is, if a game like No Man's Sky does turn out to be very good, if it doesn't live up to the hype that it's being hyped for by companies like GameSpot or IGN, can that negatively affect the game? Can it hurt the game and make it into a nope? Can it make the game not be successful because of these media and these consumers who overhype the game to all holy hell? So I think it's a really good comment, and it's something that we all have to watch out for in the future. And the last comment comes from Dark Side of the Wall. He says, nope, this game won't live up to the hype. Most of the reasons are already covered in this video. A lot of games have promised the endless universe to explore, but none of those games succeeded in making an interesting universe to explore. In the end, that's the most important thing. After visiting the 100th planet with the 100th variant of long-necked dinosaur, the exploration in No Man's Sky won't feel so rewarding. That's one of my bigger concerns too. In a lot of procedurally generated games like Starbound or Minecraft, the world, other than your personal creativity, isn't very interesting to explore, and especially in a world where it's supposed to be infinite. When you use something like infinite in a game like procedurally generated tool as a marketing thing, to me that just means that they're going to have slightly variant long-necked dinosaurs, like he used as an example in that comment, or their color palette is going to be different, and they're going to be called something completely random. To me, that's unfortunate. I think that's what's going to be the case in the game. So, yeah, I'm not entirely convinced by the game, and I pretty much agree with what he said. But enough about No Man's Sky. Let's talk about Far Cry 4. After this video is done, if you want to leave your own comment, please preface it with hope or nope, and tell me why you think the game is going to succeed or why it's going to be a failure. And please keep all your comments respectful, because then you can pretty much guarantee that I'll give you a reply and we can start an actual conversation. Okay, Far Cry 4 is being developed by Ubisoft Montreal. Probably know them from a couple series, mainly Assassin's Creed and, big shocker, the Far Cry series. Being published by Ubisoft, that's also a big shocker, never would have guessed. Ubisoft, I have a very rocky relationship with them. They have a very bad history of giving subpar PC ports, which is very unfortunate because I really like their games, but they've said some bad things about PC users in the past as well, so I have to always be slightly skeptical of them. Now, the game is currently scheduled for release on November 18th, 2014. I believe it's November 20th in Australia, don't quote me on that. So that's about a month away at this point, which seems fine. I think they actually pushed it back a little bit. I might be thinking about Dragon Age Inquisition, though. It was one of those two that they pushed back. It'll come out in like a month. Okay, so let's talk about the game a little bit. Let's talk about the map size first, because that's something that I really enjoyed in Far Cry 3. The map is apparently going to be about as big as Far Cry 3's was, which is, I think it was it 15 or 50? It was a big map. Rook Island was huge and varied and fantastic. I loved that map. And apparently it's going to be about the same size, but the game is taking place in a very Himalayas type environment. So there's a lot more mountains, there's a lot more high places to run around in, and I think that's going to be actually beneficial for the game, because when you look at Oblivion and Skyrim, they kind of did a very similar thing. In Skyrim, they added a lot more mountains to the game, which made everything a lot more compact, and they could actually group more locations together within a smaller area. In Oblivion, you'd find yourself running on flat ground through fields a lot of the time, and it wasn't very interesting when you just fought wolves over and over and over again. In Far Cry 3, that was one of the things I did notice a lot. You'd be running through or driving along a road for a long time, not seeing anything other than a roving band of red-shirted bandits, and it just wasn't very interesting. Or you'd be fighting Siberian tigers or whatever. Now, in the Himalayas environment, there's going to be a lot more mountains, and I think that they're going to use that as a way to do a very similar thing that Bethesda did with Skyrim. They'll be able to jam more locations in a smaller area, because they can put, say, one location on one side of the mountain, then one location on the other side. There's still a big gap in between them, but they're within a smaller area nonetheless. I think it really helped Skyrim when they did that, so I'm quite happy that they kind of moved on to this new location. And it's also varied up the landscape a lot, because in Far Cry, the map became very samey throughout the series. The first game was very island-oriented. The second game, they obviously went to Africa, which varied it up. But again, it was a lot of fields, a lot of jungle. And then in Far Cry 3, obviously, Rook Island was, again, like the islands, the tropical paradise. So I'm very interested to see this new area. There's going to be lots of mountains, lots of snow, and then lots of, like, gliding around because of the heighted elevations and stuff. The wingsuit does make a return, which is great. I loved using that thing. It was a great way to get across the map without having to drive everywhere and having to deal with all the pirates constantly attacking you. So I think the map is going to be a very positive effect to this series. Okay, speaking of the map, let's talk about the hardcore mode, because this is something I'm really excited about. I love hardcore modes in games, anything like Skyrim or Fallout. I always want to use a hardcore mode. So the way they describe the hardcore mode in this game is you can die from hypothermia. So if you're up in the snow-capped mountains, there's a big chance you're going to die if you can't find a fire or something to warm you up within a certain amount of time. And then you can also get diseases from things like, I would assume, maybe like a dog, or if you got bit by a snake, maybe you get poisoned. So having that mechanic in there, I think is great, because it just makes it a much more immersive experience when you're playing the game. I would much rather have to worry about this type of thing while I'm trying to like complete my objectives and stuff, because to me it just adds a new layer. In Far Cry 3 it was very grounded. You always had as much time as you could ever want to complete your objective. You could run around a pirate base for hours just slowly killing off everyone, and then to me it got a little bit boring. So adding in this kind of spices the gameplay up a bit, and it is a totally optional experience. You can turn it off if you don't want it, so if you don't like that type of thing, you're totally fine. I want to talk a bit about the story and the player narrative, because that was something I didn't like in Far Cry 3. The story was quite lackluster, the characters were also very lackluster, with the exception of Voss. He was awesome. But your main character, Jason Brody, was he wasn't interesting. And his motivations didn't make sense, it didn't make sense. But I'm not going to harp on that game too much. I'm just going to talk about how Ubisoft has apparently noticed that, and they want to fix it. So Ubisoft has gone on the record and said that they're trying to put in less player narrative. So player narrative is your character talking and having his own personality. It's still there. You still got your character, AJ or whatever his name is. He still talks, he still has a personality, but there's going to be less of it, which in my opinion is a very good thing. Because when you're playing a game like Far Cry, at least I want to be very immersed in the game. I don't want to be having to listen to all this exposition from my first-person character who I never even see his face. To me, it's not very intriguing. I would rather be able to make my own character, and unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to get that in the Far Cry series. So at least having your character say less, to me, is a very positive plus to the game. They're also trying to improve the story integration with the open world, so what that kind of means is, in Far Cry 3, there was a lot of the time a mission where your friend was being tortured or something like that, and you had to go rescue them right away, but it never gave you really a time scale to do that. So that meant you could go around and do whatever the hell you wanted for as long as you wanted, and then go to the mission, and conveniently the person is still alive. It was, again, kind of an immersion breaker for me, and I really like being immersed in my games. So adding that in is great. So it's going to be things that just complement the open world a bit more. Like, you need to go, it's like they won't put a fake time scale on the missions, at least. So to me, that's great. Hopefully they improve the story as well and the characters. I think that they hopefully will. I'm a little bit skeptical of that, because in my opinion, the latest Assassin's Creed games have had very uninteresting characters, especially 3. The guy in Black Flag, I don't even remember his name, which is kind of a testament to that again, but he was a bit better. But again, they need to really work on their characterization a bit. They've never really been that strong, even, with the exception of Ezio. I mean, I can't really think of any more characters in either Far Cry or Assassin's Creed that are really that memorable. So let's talk about the multiple endings. There's apparently going to be multiple endings in this game. There was also multiple endings in Far Cry 3, but it was actually just 2 endings that were very clear-cut. You do this, or you do that. Apparently they're going to improve that. I don't know what that means. Maybe they'll add in 3 endings, or 4 endings. But what they have said is they're going to be less clear-cut. There's going to be more gray in the endings. So it's going to be more of you weighing the pros and cons of each ending, than choosing the best one for you. I don't know if it's going to be just the ending that you choose, or if they're going to have like a branching storyline. I don't think they will have a branching storyline. I think it's very unlikely they will, because at the end of the day, Far Cry is an action, first-person sandbox adventure game. It's not an RPG, and it's very much geared towards the mass media, the main media consumer. The person who buys Call of Duty, the person who buys Battlefield, or only buys like 3 or 4 games a year, and they're usually like the AAA titles. And that's totally fine. I think that Far Cry does what it does very well, but I don't think they're going to be adding in very many RPG-like mechanics in this game, just because it won't appease those people who, at the end of the day, are their main consumer. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is something I'm very, very excited for, because in my opinion, the Far Cry series has needed this for a long time. Drop in and drop out co-op. Thank God. Far Cry 3 really needed that. They had co-op in the game, but it was only like a horde mode mission-based system. It just wasn't very fun. It wasn't very engaging, and it was a big missed opportunity in my opinion. So apparently, drop in, drop out co-op. It's great. That's a game where I really want to run around with a friend and cause untold amounts of havoc. I think that the stuff that you could do in that game with your buddies sounds fantastic and intriguing. If you could maybe even have like random people drop in kind of like that Dark Souls or Watch Dogs sort of system, I think it would be great to include that. I think it will be just like 4-player or 2-player co-op, like drop in, drop out from your friend's Xbox 360 or Xbox One or whatever. But that's welcome to me. I think that the game would really benefit from that, and I just really want to play it with my friends and like kind of do the Payday thing where you plan out how you're going to take over this fort or liberate this area or kill all these guys without being seen, and then like both get into a truck and then have the one person drive while you're trying to kill everyone else and like save his ass. I think it'll be really fun to play the co-op in that game, so that's something that's a big plus for me. I think it'll make the game stay a lot fresher, a lot longer. That's great. I'm so excited for the co-op, you have no idea. Alright, so do I think Far Cry 4 is going to be a hope or a nope? I'm giving it a big old hope. Loved Far Cry 3. Far Cry 4 looks very similar gameplay-wise, but they're adding in a couple new things to spice it up, like the co-op and the hardcore mode, so the change of location is great as well. I think it's going to be keeping the game a lot fresher than it would have otherwise if they went back to the tropical island. I'm really excited for it. I think it's got a lot of potential. I'm a little worried about the PC port, but in all honesty, Far Cry 3's port was very good. It actually ran really well, all things considered, and for Ubisoft, that's saying a lot. So yeah, Far Cry 4 is getting a hope. And if you agree with me, or if you disagree, let me know in the comments. Please keep all your comments respectful and civil. Don't insult me, don't insult other people, that's stupid. And if you agree with me, please preface the comment with hope. If you disagree with me, please preface the comment with nope. And tell me why. I'll be using some of the comments in the next video. And I am PattyJack. I'll see you guys next time.